For what purpose does the gentleman from Lee, Representative Reives, rise?
To debate the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman has the floor to debate the bill.
I know everybody's tired and ready to go, so I'm going to cut most of my remarks, and I will make it very simple. One, I will tell you that there's always an election underway, despite what we've heard tonight. Two, I will tell you that I hope my comments aren't dismissed as rhetoric because I disagree. Disagreements, dialogue. Dialogue is what makes government good. Somebody disagreeing with you doesn't mean that what they're saying is rhetoric. Three, I would just like to say honestly and at the bottom of my heart, since most of us will be back in 2017, that I do not give a rat's rear about what some guy did 20 years ago that called himself a Democrat that I think is a wrong way to do business. So at least when we're discussing things that I happen to be involved with, I would just ask that nobody tell me, well, it's okay for me to do that because some guy 20 years ago did it and he said he's from the same party as you. Because as we all know from studying history, parties change, people change. You can't separate this state or any other place in this country into two groups that are homogeneous based on the letter behind their name. All I'm asking is this. Judges are part of one of the three branches of judges of our government that has been set up by our Constitution. If there's anybody who should be impartial, it's judges.
Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Guilford, Representative Blust, rise?
Would the gentleman briefly yield for a question?
Does the gentleman from Lee yield to the gentleman from Guilford?
What the heck? I bet this was going to be good.
No, it's not good, but you've made a very good point that I think is salient to a lot of issues we face. And you said just 20 years, something that may have happened 20 years ago shouldn't be held against people or affect what we're doing now. Do you stand behind that proposition?
And that was the most amazing misstatement of what I said that I think you could have possibly done. That's an excellent piece of legal work. Let me say it a little more clearly since I wasn't. No, I don't stand behind your statement. I stand behind my statement that I can't be held responsible for what some man 20 years ago did that called himself a member of the party I'm affiliated with now. So, if we're clear on that.
Mr. Speaker, may I ask his remark to be placed upon the journal?
That's good. I hope you listen to it. All right. If I may continue. What I'm saying is this. When you've got your judges, legislators write law. The executive branch executes law.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Your judges are there to interpret law. And they should be as impartial as you can make them. Yes, judges have been partisan before. Yes, both parties have loved the idea of partisanism when it's been good for them and they've been able to get their people elected. I don't elect judges based on that. I voted for Republican judges. I voted for Democratic judges. I vote because I want the person who can make the decision and interpret the Constitution. It's just that simple. So for that reason alone, I would ask that we set this bill back until we come up with a different way. Representative Stevens and Representative Cunningham themselves have already talked about ways that we can do this, but stop making everything partisan. It would just be nice one day if we got back to governing. If we got back one day to saying that, you know what, the letter behind your name is not a defining characteristic. Because candidly, if you feel that you know me because I've got a D behind my name and you know my positions on issues, you are sorely mistaken. If you think, for instance, having a D behind my name means I have a certain position on weapons, come to my home uninvited. If you feel that because you've got an R behind your name that I know your position on certain issues of religion and race and things of that sort, I would be angry with me if I judged you as such. I have got good friends across the aisle who have the exact same beliefs that I have on 99% of issues. But every time we walk in here, we've got some bill that we're running and we're saying, well, we need to know more about people, and this is a critical piece of information about that person. We know, all of us being elected, that we got a whole lot of friends that are in elected positions that were in a different party probably 15 years ago. That doesn't mean that that person has changed. So I feel compelled to make that statement. I feel compelled to say that. It's going to fall on deaf ears, I understand, but I hope somebody is listening. Because as things go, government's going to change. Some of us are going to be here for years working together and understand everything doesn't have to be partisan. Everything doesn't have to be about that, but I will always feel that judges And people on boards of education that are looking out for our children should be nonpartisan. I should feel they have no pressure from the machines that get some of us up here and the machines that run some of our parties. They should be out there on their own, and that's what we're here for. And that's not a Republican argument, that's not a Democratic argument, and I promise you if the Democrats are in the majority, and if we are having this same conversation 5, 10, 15 years from now, I will say the same thing. Those two areas should be sacrosanct. At some point, at some level, we've got to decide that there are things we're just going to leave alone. You can dominate every government in this state and this country without making either of those two areas partisan, easily. We write law. Why do we have to have the judicial branch also? So for that reason alone, I would ask for your no vote. Again, if you've made up your mind, I understand. But I'm not going to do what I've heard some speakers do today and presume that you've made up your mind for some particular reason. I'm going to give you all the benefit of the doubt that you support or don't support this bill based on the right reasons. But if you in your mind have an inkling of changing your position, this is a time to change the position. Because we need that judicial branch to be as impartial as it can be. Can you take politics out of everything? No. We can't take politics about what kind of coffee we're going to have in the break room. We can't take it out of what kind of popcorn we're going to get served. Politics is everywhere, but you can reduce the influence. And you have a chance in your position, having a supermajority, to begin that process. But if all we're going to do is keep going back and forth, whoever's got the majority, and just say, well, I'm going to do it because those guys did it, then government's never going to get right. And at some point in time, government can get right. Everything doesn't have to be partisan. We understand there are things that you're going to run just because you can. I get that. But everything doesn't have to be that. And again, I apologize for taking time. I know everybody wants to go home, but there are times that I feel better that I've said it. So I've said it, so when I have the conversation later privately, I don't have to hear somebody say, well, man, you should have told me that before. I've told you. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak uninterrupted. Thank you, Representative Bluss, for allowing me to continue without asking me any more questions. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas.